for it.
Okay, so
Okay.
hopefully this time I'm not like peeking over on the side of you.
We're using something different today, so hopefully we're good. Hello.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking, Louloua? There's a show that I have on YouTube that's a comedy, but we used real people with disabilities in it, and it's Living with Lynette, and I feel like I should open up with like a little jingle, Learning with Lynette, but then I'm copyright infringing on myself, right?
That is fine.
Okay, so hi Louloua, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Can I just jump in and tell you some thoughts I had and
Yes.
explain them? So as a young man with muscular dystrophy, just quickly, if you don't know anything about muscular dystrophy, basically, and you can have a child onset, you can have adult onset, you can have different kinds of muscular dystrophy, but basically your muscles are slowly getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And it's interesting to talk about for a minute, because when you're working with degenerative things like that, like Parkinson's or muscular dystrophy, you're always doing this balancing act that I think people should think about anyway. That how much do I want to sleep? How much do I want to be awake? How much do I want to discipline my child? How much do I want to play with them? How much, that balancing act of, some of what's happening is going in one direction. My child is growing up, so I don't want to, not grow with them. Or their muscles are getting weaker. So how much do I adjust for the degenerative nature of the problem, or the opposite of that, like when your child is growing, you have to let go. In the case of something where someone's getting weaker, you kind of have to help more as the change takes place. And it's a dance, because if you overhelp, then they don't work. And if they don't work, then the problem goes faster and the weakness comes quicker. If they overwork, there's too much stress, there's too much resistance, and the problem comes faster, and you get weaker and you get behavior. So you showed me a couple of videos. In the one case, it was interesting because the young man got up and he's talking sort of to himself, and mom says, "Hey, your dad's talking to you. Come on, answer." And then he answers beautifully and leaves the room. And I don't think there's much to say, except maybe dad could have done that, but it doesn't matter. It was just a lovely moment. But the feeding is where this dance is. And I was excited to talk about this. Because of this, you have to care. Will he be able to swallow well? Will he be able to chew well? All of that is a real player. But because you've been told by the doctor, oh, his muscles are going to get weaker and weaker, he might choke, he may not swallow properly, he may not swallow his drool, he may not chew his food good enough, you sort of get panicked and like, oh no, I have to feed him, I have to take care of him. And, and now what I see is he's pulling away like this to say, I'm not done yet, or I'm not ready for the next bite. And you're trying to get him to finish, come on, we're almost done. And there's that sort of that emotional push-pull as he's growing older and becoming, in some ways, more like a baby. So it's really, really a challenge for parents. And especially as other people have so many opinions, you're at a restaurant and you're feeding him and everybody's like, well, he'd be fine if they'd let him do it himself, right? Or you think they're doing that. So you feel nervous and you don't go out. So how can we help? Well, it's a dance. You want to encourage as much as possible for him to feed himself, even if it means that he's feeding with his bare hands, even if it means that he feeds himself half the food. Even if it means that you're now doing really mushy food to ensure that if he didn't chew enough, the swallowing happened without choking. And he's thin. So you're also thinking, wow, but I have to make sure he gets the right nutrients. I have to keep his digestive tract working and, working with fiber and all these things. I know it's difficult. But it's the dance we all do with our kids. And muscular dystrophy, having a label like that, in some ways is a blessing, because at least you go, okay, I know the dance I have to do.
Mm.
And, and my child will be with me probably always, while he's alive. So, you have a different dance than the parent who's having to let go while they're afraid they'll be in a car accident, drunk driving with a bunch of friends. But it's only different because your story is different. It's still the same balancing act. He needs to feel as much as possible like he's in control of the moment, because he'll swallow and chew better in control of the moment, like he's got support and encouragement, and like he can do it himself. If we're doing neurofeedback, we'd try to shore some of this up. But even without the neurofeedback, the more he feels like he can do it himself, and he feels like you'll back off if he's doing it himself, the more likely he is to chew properly and swallow properly. And you'll have to watch. You'll have to keep an eye from a distance, and you'll still have the same dance of making sure all the right foods are getting into him and stuff. But at least you're encouraging independence rather than dystrophy.
Mm. And so
Right?
you're saying that's important. Is it important just for the degenerative side of not of things kind of his muscles, not getting as bad as maybe they could be? Or are you saying that's also important for other skills that he may gain in other settings?
I mean, it's important emotionally. It's important to feel strong and capable, but also supported, like in the areas where you need the support, somebody's available. It's important not to feel like an inconvenience, like, quick, let's get this food down you, I'll do it. That's okay occasionally, but you don't want to feel like an inconvenience. So it's important for your self-worth. And when you have good self-worth, then your muscles will deteriorate at a different rate, because you'll behave differently, and you won't be tearing yourself down with stress. Stress and resistance and all these things, they cause their own damage. And we're trying to minimize the extra weight, right? So yeah, for all skills, it will change the whole layout. Let's talk about autism really quickly. A young man that I know, when he was very young, I remember talking with his mom over and over again and saying, I get that you want to make his life super easy, but right now you're doing everything for him and treating him like a prince, and he's not responsible for any of his behavior. If this is a real story, he was literally 8 years old, sitting on the hired Santa Claus's head, trying to pull off his beard, right? And mom's making all the other children at the party to blame for everything. And her golden boy is like, that's okay because he's autistic. Well, I never, because of the nature of their belief system and the way that they hired me in, didn't include behavioral stuff. And so I never got to impact that. And there were a couple of other instances where I was involved. They went to Disneyland. He was about 12. He's screaming and fighting and trying to get through the gate. And I'm saying, no, we have to wait to teach him about waiting. And mom's like, oh, well, I'll just pay someone, right? So that he can get in ahead of everyone else. So she kept encouraging those things. Now, this is a boy who was fully capable of being very strong and independent. But at this point, he's quite violent. I just got called in again, and all the things I said came true. It's a sad statement of affairs to say, look, I'm sorry, but you've been teaching him this all along. So let's go back to muscular dystrophy. We're not talking about violence and stuff, but we are talking about a lived experience creating a becoming. And I think this benefits all parents. And it's why I wanted to take a few minutes to say, yes, it's a dance, and yes, it's hard. But the more that you can make a person responsible for their own skill development and their own behavior,
Wow,
the better they'll be while you support them and help them through. Okay, that was something, that was my, I really wanted to say this part after seeing the video, because I think it's useful to all parents. And then I know you had a bunch of questions you got from that you wanted to talk about, and you weren't sure if we should record that. Why don't we just tell people, go ahead. If you just wanted one lesson today, you got it.
We're going on.
Yeah.
I will never get enough of this lady.
Well, just because you know, if what I love about Q&As is very often they're asking the questions that other people have. So I hate to waste it and not record it for people, you know. So here's your commercial break. Okay. Tell me about it.
Okay, so attention, you know, attention deficits, hyperactivity, hot topics. Everyone tries to, you know, give their own fair share of explanation. I always love your take on things. So if you can give your understanding of what that is, how you tackle it with neurofeedback, but most importantly, how you tackle it behaviorally. So how would you help without neurofeedback using brain science?
Okay, so I assume that when you were on the Q&A that you had a moment to explain neurofeedback to people, right?
Yes.
And you
yes,
were
yes,
talking. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll take a moment and just really quickly, neurofeedback is when we're
Please.
looking at the brainwave behavior, and you look to see what's out of balance or where you have too much amplitude of a particular frequency, and then you encourage the brain to shift that with a reward sound, a reward video, whatever. So it's literally teaching the brain in the same way that you teach the brain when you say yes and no and please do and please don't. But it's faster because it's not with your opinion or your judgment. It's strictly based on, oh, too much of that wave or too much of that type of wave. And so it's quite scientifically driven. And yet it's also kind of like old wives' tales in that we've all known a lot of magical things through the years and passed them one mother to another. And we teach brains all day long. You know, when they feed him, they teach him. When they encourage him to feed himself, they teach him. So you're teaching the brain and changing the brain balance at every juncture, whether you're doing it with an EEG machine or not. And that's why these things can come together. So that's like a quick hit on neurofeedback, and then a quick hit on attention. Think of attention as, where is my attention? So I have a problem with the fact that everyone goes, he just won't pay attention. Well, you're always paying attention to something. You might be paying attention to your daydream, right? You might be, oh, wow, imagine if there were unicorns in the ceiling. And that's filling you full of something interesting to pay attention to, which causes the brain to shut down the feedback loops and the sensory information coming in. So when you pay attention internally like that, you teach your brain not to pay attention externally. The reverse is also true. There's people who hyper attend, right? And they're like, that shouldn't be a white door, and you shouldn't be standing like that, and that, right? And they're hyper vigilant and they're paying attention to everything, and they hardly relax and pay attention to their meandering thoughts. And that's, again, attention. It's, where am I putting my interest and my thoughts? And it impacts memory hugely, especially as you age. So, but even as you develop, so if you're not paying attention, if you're going, oh, imagine if there's unicorns in the ceiling, and they're trying to get you out the door for school, and someone will put your shoes on for you, and you can keep thinking about unicorns. Well, you're not learning to attend externally, and you're not learning the skill being taught, and they're yelling, pay attention, pay attention. Right? So attention is best when you want to do it and when you're choosing. This is why play is phenomenal. And when your challenge is what's happening, not someone else is telling you to pay attention. If you're triggered to be interested in something, you will pay attention for as long as you can, and you will try. So that's my idea of attention. That's a little hit on neurofeedback. Give me the question again.
So any tips behaviorally? How would you?
Oh, on how to pay attention in a way where you don't have neurofeedback to stick on the frontal lobes and
exactly.
Right. Well, that's a good, actually, that was kind of funny, but it was good, right? Because attention is so much about, there's a whole network there, but we often go to the frontal lobes to get somebody paying attention more. And that's because that's where your executive function is. And that's where you sort of think about your life, think about your problems, think of yourself. And so if we can stimulate interest in something, then we're going to improve that functioning. And that, there's many problems that can be happening there that we'd have to address individually. But in a general way, you need to inspire someone to want to do it. That's the whole motivator concept, right? So you have somebody that's aging and they come in and they say, my memory's going. I guess I've got dementia. I've forgotten everything. And you say, well, over 70% of memory is attention. Why don't we start there? And you start readdressing habits like don't just set your keys down while you're talking because you may set them in a new place and now you think you don't remember where you put them, but you never put the information in the first place. You can't recall what you never took note of, right? If it's a child, same, play, fun, what they're into. That's why we play, because if they're
schoolwork?
into it, well, I have my own opinions about school, but I think the trick is, all good video teachers know, and video teachers, I mean, like people who put on shows for children, they know that you have to keep attention. They know that whether you're teaching math, whether you're teaching sign language videos, whether you're teaching geography, you got to make it interesting. Any good filmmaker knows that. So think like that. It's schoolwork. They gave me 5 pages of math that my child has to do. If I was trying to get you to watch this on a video, before we started, you said people are saying, 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, they can take more. We'll give them a commercial, right? But the truth is, you're right. There is a period of time. So make it interesting, or lots of breaks. You want to wake the brain up. You can do tips like eating an apple is fantastic. It's got natural sugar, it's crunchy, you're chewing, so it's helping to circulate your blood more, and the sound is keeping you sort of more awake. I don't know if you've noticed, but when we're tired, we tend to reach for food. And part of that is we're trying to stay awake. We're trying to stimulate our brain. And so if you're trying to pay attention, then it helps to do things like that, to get up and walk around your desk, to go throw a ball for a couple of minutes and come back. So it looks like procrastination to a lot of parents is often actually really good for the child to do their homework, depending on if they have a severe issue with attention or not. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to do something and you sit down and it's like, here it comes, algebra. I hate algebra. Immediately, your brain's being signaled to go, oh, we hate algebra. We're really stressed. We're going to give you stress EEG, brainwave activity. We're going to give you stress hormones. We're going to give you all the things that make this hard because you told me you hate it. So encouraging your child to do well includes in finding ways that they will value for them to enjoy it, even if it seems impossible. So let's just do one quick example. Let's say that you're talking about math, since I said algebra, and it's really hard. And there are conditions that need to be addressed separately, but let's just general attention. Your child hates algebra. They have to do their algebra homework. make it tangible, turn it into a game, or stand and throw a ball back and forth while you talk about the concepts and you throw questions at them. A lot of time, that action that you're doing, rather than sitting at a desk where your head's starting to swim, just being physical, being outside, it opens you up. You're paying attention externally because you're catching the ball, not internally to I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And it's kind of fun, and you really dig that your mom or dad will do that with you. So, okay, I can do this. And now the cheer is happening naturally. So they get the answer right. Dude, right. That's a natural, real response rather than you're sitting at the desk and you go, good job, right? It feels different. You experience it different. And that would be one way to help with attention. That's tangible.
Yeah, that's good.
You don't look like you think it is.
No, it is. I was actually just thinking, no, it is. I was just thinking that it's so funny that, you know, we tend to all think that attention should be, like you're saying, just sitting. And if you're not able to do the task that is asked of you on that table, then you have a problem with attention. But actually, our brain and nervous system is so much more complex and capable than that. You know, we think our brain can't manage to do all these things at the same time, but it can, and it can even do better instead of trying to limit and think of attention as this is me being attentive.
Right. You pay attention for a few seconds and you go out, right? So a lot of time the kids will want to put on music, like rocking hard music, and they're helping their brain stay awake. And someone comes in and says, turn that off. You can't pay attention with that on. And they're like, oh, you're ruining all my tools. You're making me sit to where I fall asleep and now I can't think. So yeah, even loud music can be useful, and it can be a problem. It's sort of, we're back at the beginning, you know, that dance. You have to pay attention to, is it actually useful for your child to play loud rock music, jump up from their desk, air guitar for a minute, sit back down and do it? Or is it actually stopping them? Do they actually do better without it? Don't just take your opinion. It has to be a certain way. Pay attention. You're asking them to. Ooh, that's like a sound bite.
So maybe since we're on this subject, maybe just quickly explain how hyperactivity is a lot of the times a way to compensate, and that it actually helps. So, you know, hyperactivity today is most generally explained to parents as the kid needs to calm down.
Right.
But actually, I mean, are we making this worse?
Well, first of all, that was a really natural bridge. Well done, Louloua, nicely. Nicely placed, because I'm sort of already talking about it, right? So a person's being hyperactive because their brain is like, they're going, oh, I just want to think about the unicorns on the ceiling. I hate algebra. And they're trying to stay with you by, okay, if I keep moving, if I chew an apple, if I crunch on ice, if I cluck my tongue, if I chew gum, if I squeeze my toes in my hands, maybe I can stay awake for one question. Hyperactivity is a means for a person of compensating for this state. And I've been describing it more like a purposeful choice, but it isn't when you have an actual challenge with this. So your brainwave behavior is too slow moving. You're in this sort of daydream state a lot of the time, unless you're physically moving, which makes things go faster because your blood's pumping more, your oxygen levels are different, your breathing is different, and that's all moving your heart rate is different. It's moving everything quicker. And so you're able to pay attention more, and hence you'll probably like sports more than you'd like sitting at your desk, right? Because you're going to feel better.
Or dance.
But also,
right.
But also those things are helping. So you want to mix it. You just like we want to help the muscular dystrophy person feed themselves, even though we have to help them. In this case, you want to mix that activity with that moment of clarity and a little bit of work. And eventually the balance gets simpler and people can grow out of ADHD, out of these attention deficit issues. As long as you're not using medication to create an addiction for that. But then sometimes you need medication. So I'm not giving you a sort of a flat, yes, no, we're making it worse, we're making it better. Societally, yes, we're making it worse. But case by case, whether we're making it worse or not. Very often we want the child to calm down and sit at the desk because it's simpler for the teacher who's stuck in a paradigm that has a bunch of students that need to sit down at their desk. Otherwise you'd have a whole lot of folks jumping up around and dancing around the room, and that won't work. So you can find ways, if you focus on your child and listen to your child and say, okay, let's try these ways first. And you can, a lot of schools will give an exception to your child to go and do their exams, for example, in a separate area where they can stand and then sit and stand and then sit. Or they have those bicycles for under desks now, like little pedals and things. So there are ways to help the child grow into a more capable adult that doesn't need any kind of medication. But there's also some children who have it in spades and need medication, right?
Cool. Awesome.
Okay.
I think
did that answer you? Or
yeah.
did I go on a roll?
Okay. No, it was awesome. I hope people find it helpful.
Me too. I'm in a jabbery mood. So did I miss giving you a chance to say anything you wanted to say?
No, we're good. I just hope this feeds.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Learning with Lynette. Okay. Bye.